UW system is doing it for free, but the private aren't, and we're through St. Norbert. That's what we're running this year.
But I don't know that you have to be through St. Norbert's. You could require that the kids, if you can find a UW institution that offers it, you can say, you can take it through UW institution, that's what we're going to do. If you want to take it privately, you'll have to pay for it. Because as long as you offer it, and you offer it that it's equivalent to what you're after.
The St. Norbert has already told us we will be invoiced, and we have.
Well, not if the kids can take the course.
Correct. I mean, at this point, school starts in a few weeks.
Well, you could say there's a misunderstanding of the law, and here's the reality of, if you can say, here's an equivalent course at a UW school that we don't have to pay for. Kids, this is what we're offering you under the Youth Options new law. If you choose not to take that, you can choose to go to St. Norbert and pay that money.
Yeah, and that's where I get confused. Under the Youth Options, there's time limits.
Yeah.
And under this college credit program, there isn't the time limits. And even if we offer the course, we have to allow them to take it, because we've got two programs here that have different criteria.
And you just need to know that legislatively, they have admitted that this is a really flawed law. That there's lots of things in it that were unintended.
I don't think they knew that Youth Options existed when they came up with it.
Yeah, exactly. They plan to fix it. I mean, that's what they're talking right now.
Right.
And the short-term fix is that the UW system said, we are going to eat the cost.
Right.
We're going to eat the cost so that schools don't have these enormous budgets that we can't do this. I mean, there's no way you can even plan for that. It could be, you could have every senior in your school, or junior for that matter, taking 6 college credits. You'd end up being on the hook for it. So UW's system said, and the legislature said, no, this wasn't what we intended. Oh, we didn't know about that. Oh, geez, youth options, that exists? So in hindsight, they have backed off and said, we can't fix it right now because we're not in session, blah, blah, blah. We promise, well, you know, this politician's talking, we promise we will fix it. And in the meantime, the short-term fix is UW says, we'll eat the cost. So as a school, I would say, and maybe you're too far down the road for this St. Norbert issue, but as a school, your plan should be this. Find an equivalent course at a UW system and say, here's what we are offering. I mean, we understand that that's an option. Here's the option we're giving you. If you want to take it privately, that's your cost. We are allowing you to access that this way.
We can still, then I think the question we would ask Abdallah is that in the case if it's a private school, not a UW school.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
Huh? Yeah, that didn't last very long. Amy, you said you were going to be good today. That didn't last very long.
Well, I tried to be engaged. Isn't that better? I've been smelling stress-relieving
smelling salts or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Darling, you've been part of that on occasion.
Okay, so I'm going to just give folks a quick overview of the application, and this will be the ESEA application. I don't know the allowables for Titles 2 or Titles 3, but I do know how the application works. So if there's things within the application for Title 2 or Title 3 that you're running into, again, I can show you how the application works. The allowability questions we're going to pass off to my colleagues at DPI. Okay, just a couple of things about the application. The way it is set up is, first of all, it's set up to follow the law. But secondly, if you learn anything, and I've been saying this for the last couple of years since we released this version of the application, if you do anything with your application, if you were to pass on to your replacement one bit of advice about the application, it's to start at the top of the screen and work your way down. And that includes starting with Title I, working on Title I, and then working on Title II, because guess what? Information you put into Title I, especially around your enrollment, gets populated into Title II. So start at the top of the screen and work your way down. As you log in this morning, I'm going into the test site here. But when you log in this morning, if you have problems logging in, or if you have problems with forms or something, let me know. I can help. A lot of that stuff I can fix right away here on site this morning. First thing about this is you can switch. Oh, what did we do last year? If you click the year up here in this ribbon, you can switch between school years. So that's pretty awesome. The other thing here is if you go in and start entering your contacts for this school year. I'm in here for. Now this is test, so you're not going to normally see this red error. But if you go in and start entering your contacts, now just a reminder, you're not going to be able to type in anybody's name. You pick your contacts from your user list. So they have to be set up as users within your application in order to show up on the list. But if I go through here, I'm going to pick Mary here. That's my sister. She does not live in the Baraboo School District, but this is a test. And then I'm going to pick Ryan as the business manager, and I'm going to hit save. Then it populates. So that's just a quick reminder of how the contacts work.
So Shelley, how would I add someone to the user list if they're not already in that contact?
If you're not already in that contact list, we have what are called super users. Oh, they're playing with my test site right now. That's okay. We have what we call super users for each district, and each district have, well, super users, what I call them, but they're technically the ESEA Application Administrator, and often it's usually the Title I Coordinator or the Business Manager, but each district has their own ESEA Application Administrator, and that person is the person who can assign user rights to people within the district. That person also, I know it's audit season, so you're welcome to assign your auditor, for example, user rights to view-only rights for the application.
And you have more than one of those super users?
No. So if you're not sure, if you're not sure if you're the super user or if you're not sure who that person is, again, I can raise your hand. I'll bring my laptop over. We'll figure out who that is, and we'll go from there. And if that person has left your district or has, moved on to a different position, I can switch that over to somebody else right away today. So that's not a problem. The other thing with the application, let's see here. Is there any way to go back to that? See if we can try to get back on the. Oh, you know what? I'm just going to go into the real deal. I'll just go right into the real deal and not press anything. Be very, very careful. Okay. So the other thing is if you're not sure what you're supposed to do on a page, you can see this little question mark here. Those are our help screens. You can always look on the help screen. The help screen will give you instructions of how to fill out the application as well as guidance regarding that page. And then there's also throughout the application circles of they're red, and then they have a white arrow inside. If you see that red arrow, it means that field is required. So again, the application, I'm going to now focus specifically on Title I, because if you're new to Title I or new to the application, it's going to be helpful to hear this spiel again, especially if we're filling out applications. If you ever seen my Title I 101 presentation, you often see I go through do I need to adjust this?
Yep, no, we'll see.
Oh, this is where.
Okay, we got you.
Oh dear, that's right, I'm being videotaped. Okay,
Streaming.
so if you've ever seen the Title I 101, we have a slide about how funds get to school districts and how funds get to Title I schools. And this is just a quick reminder. The funds come from the U.S. Department of Education. And using census data, each state gets those funds. So again, we use the U.S. Census data. The state gets its funds based on that. And then from there, again, using census data, DPI has a formula to determine how much each school district receives. At that point in time, the district has the opportunity to take reservations off the top of the allocation to the district. And that's things for like parent involvement activities, administration fees, or administration costs, I should say. Things like professional development for all of your Title I schools throughout the district. Those are all types of reservations that you can take off the top. And then in the application, you're going to see we have two types of budgets. The first is the reservation budget, which comes here, which is, again, the money you take off the top before you divvy out the funds to each individual school. And then what happens is after you take the funds off the top, and again, most of those reservations are optional. The only one that's required is parent involvement, and that's if you have over a $500,000 allocation, you need to reserve 1% of your allocation for parent involvement. The rest of the reservations are optional. So once you decide to take reservations or not, then you have to divvy out your money to your schools. And this is where your free and reduced lunch price data comes into play. Now the law says there's lots of ways you can use to determine low-income students in your school, but the majority of districts, and I think like 98% of districts in Wisconsin, uses free and reduced price lunch data. So that's why I put that on here, is because I believe everybody in this room uses your free and reduced price lunch data for this. So you take your enrollment for your schools, and you take your free and reduced price lunch data to determine the poverty for each school. And then based on poverty, there are some ranking rules and some other options that the district can use to determine which schools get funding, but it's primarily based on your poverty. Now, keep in mind that if one of your schools has a poverty rate of 75% or higher, they have to be served. But then again, there's 6 options for ranking, and this is where I can come in to help today, is if you say we really want to serve only our elementary schools, I can show you the differences between grade span grouping versus the 35% rule. And again, we can spend an hour on ranking and showing you all the different options, but a lot of times folks already know what they need to do. And if you're a smaller district, meaning less than 1,000 students in your enrollment, or only 1 school per grade span, so elementary, middle, and high school, you are exempt from those ranking options, and you can choose to serve whichever school you would like to do that. But then once you have your schools and your poverty determined and which schools are going to be served, that becomes your instructional budget. So in the application, you're filling out a reservations budget and an instructional budget. And what happens, though, is it all rolls up into one claim. So that's the application and how it's built. So it's built based on this process for how districts are funded. And again, if you go into the application, you want to fill out the required documentation first. So this is your main menu. Because start at the top of the screen and work your way down. Fill out your required documentation first, because guess what? That required documentation is not complete. You're not going to be able to submit the application. And then go into your budgets. And then you, starting with Title I, start with Title I, start at the top of your screen, work your way down, and then keep moving forward throughout all of your budgets for the ESEA application. Now, you can submit Title I separately from Title II, which is separate from Title III. In previous years, actually the application before this version of the application, you had to have them all done at the same time in order to submit. That is no longer the case. So again, you can submit Title I today, Title II tomorrow, and Title III on Friday, and that will be just fine. So any questions about the application? I think, again, just starting at the top of the screen, working your way down, using your planning documents, using your data that you may have brought with you today, that's going to get you through the application. And I'm looking to Chris and Darla. Is there anything else you want to add? Okay. Well, all right.
Talking a little bit about those 2 forms that we asked them to have uploaded before they got here, in case that doesn't happen, and what we do about that.
Sure. What that is we have put on the flyer that you need to have your assurance debarment forms uploaded and approved. And we said, or at least get them uploaded. Again, if they're not approved, I can take a look at them and I can approve them today. And you can see I'm working live. This district already has their forms in and uploaded and approved. What those are is your assurance form. There are several rules and regulations that the government asks us to make sure that you are assuring that you are following these rules. So that is a form that needs to be signed by your district administrator and a school board member. And then the debarment form is ultimately a form explaining that you will not contract with somebody who is debarred from receiving federal funds. These are fun, wonderful forms required by our government, but definitely needed. Now, if you don't have those forms today and you can't get those signatures, for the next week or 2, you can still move forward and complete the application. You're just not going to be able to submit until they're uploaded and approved. Yes?
Shelley, this year my auditors are requesting documentation of how we researched and improved the vendor list so that we know we're not purchasing from a debarred vendor.
Okay.
That's something new in the audit this year.
That is the first time I've heard about an audit. Let me show you what you can do to determine if your auditors are not debarred. If you go to the help screen here on this screen, the help screen comes up, and let's see here. If you scroll down to guidelines, it tells you about certifications covering debarment here, and there's a link to the federal website, and that federal website tells you which organizations and which contractors have been debarred from federal funds. So you can review that website, and it will have that's the list, the big giant list of everybody who's been debarred. So that's where you can get that information. I am shocked. That's the first time I've heard auditors being very, very thorough. That's their job, though, right?
My 27th year, it's my first time here.
Wow. The other forms, if you, again, this is more crucial, but I think up here, most everyone does not have a lot of private school participation. But the other piece that's real important for today is to have your private school affirmations, again, uploaded and approved. If they're uploaded, I can take a look at them and approve them today. That's not a problem. But you really want to get your private school affirmations uploaded because if you don't have your private school affirmations uploaded and approved, we're not going to be able to move too far in the application because it all depends on if the private school is participating in Title I or not. For example, in this district, the Adventist Junior Academy is participating in Title I, but Bay City Baptist School is not. So when you go in to fill in your enrollment, the enrollment counts to determine poverty within each school attendance area is going to be including the Adventist Junior Academy. So when you do your enrollment, the enrollment screen is going to be looking to see which private schools are participating and which ones are not. Those screens are going to be talking to each other. So this is very, very important to get that done early on so you can move forward and get that enrollment. Yes?
Does the application tell me which private schools I'm accountable to, or do I have to know that within my district?
Actually, the application will pull up the private schools that are listed in our central database at DPI. And so districts often identify those private schools that are in their in their district boundaries, and so that's what's on this list.
Is that where Amish schools would appear too?
That's where Amish schools would appear.
So if I have an Amish school within my attendance area, I
Mhm.
have to do the same thing for the Amish school?
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
If we have kids that go to outside of our district,
Sure.
do we do that?
Okay, so if you're in Surrey and you have students attending a private school, say in, I'll just say
Bondwell School District.
in Bondwell. Okay, so when Bondwell School District, if that private school is participating in the Bondwell School District's Title I program, then what will happen is when Bondwell has their consultation with that private school, they're going to get the enrollment lists from that private school. And at that point in time, Bondwell is going to say, oh, wow, these kids are from Surrey. And so at that point in time, Bondwell should call Surrey and say, okay, we have these kids attending, and we're participating, and this private school is participating in Title I services. And then at that point in time, you wouldn't be on this screen. You would go in to another screen, and I can show you later, under the Title I application. And it would, you can identify, let me see if I can do this in this demo really quick.
Yes. And that's now which school-wide title, school-wide title? Okay, so
They don't participate, they sign up.
So they're not participating.
because I know St. Paul signs off usually, but I didn't know about the high school. But you're not school-wide, so like they have, you know. That's where I was getting confused, because we're school-wide, but you're not school-wide, so I didn't know if we have to pay high school. No.
Okay, let me go. They do not participate.
So we wouldn't have to worry about
So
it.
they don't, they sign up.
Okay, but I won't worry about it.
Okay. Well, there is a place here though, but this is, pretend they didn't sign off.
Okay.
You would go into this section of the, this is now under the Title I section. It says identify private schools outside the LEA participating in your Title I services. So you'd click in here, and that's when you would pick Bondwell and then the name of that private school.
So, all right, let's say they said they wanted services.
Yes.
And the school in Cecil has high school kids that I know that I go there, but we're school-wide, but Bondwell is targeted assistance.
Okay, it goes back to those, if the students would receive, if the students were going to the public school, and if that public school was receiving Title I services, then those students would be eligible for services, assuming low income, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But let's say if it's high school and you're not serving your high
Well,
school,
we serve our high school, but Bondwell doesn't.
it goes back to
Back to
if
us.
where the kids
Okay.
would be going to school if they were going to school in the public school.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
in the public school, so the residence area that they came from.
Right.
So
If they chose to open enroll
Right.
in the public high school in Bondwell, in this example, wouldn't
Yes.
matter. It still goes back to their area of residence.
Correct.
concerns.
Is this
Correct.
new?
And then, no, it's not. It's just we've gotten down, we got a finding from USDE saying we are not as transparent as we needed to be. And so now our application is set up to be that way. And so that's where the rules are not new. Our level of transparency and our level of working with private schools have just increased. So,
But it was difficult for the resident school to know necessarily if kids were attending a private school outside of their area. It's
Right.
difficult to know that, because you don't consult with those private schools.
Right.
You don't get a list from those schools.
Right.
So unless the resident district contacts, the district where the private school is contacts the resident district, you may not know who
Right.
those kids are.
right, and then like what Linda was saying, you know, they sign off and they don't participate in our Title I program, and so then it's done. Even if there's kids coming from 10 different districts and attending that private school, if the private school is not participating in that home school district Title I services, then you know you're not going to know that your kids are going there, and you're not going to need to follow follow through on
And talk a
this.
little bit about if you try to consult with the private school and they don't respond. They don't fill out the form, they don't get back to you.
Sure.
They just don't respond.
Sure, we understand that happens, and this happens a lot with Amish schools. The private school chooses not to participate in one way, shape, or form, and sometimes that participation or choosing not to participate is the simple fact that they won't return your phone calls and they won't return any sort of emails or anything. Very common. What you need to do is send a letter to that private school inviting them for consultation. That's what the law says. Whether they are, every year they don't want to participate, but every year you still need to send that letter for inviting for consultation because things may change in that private school. Administration may change in that private school. We don't know that. So every year you have to invite them for participation. It's a letter, and that needs to be a certified letter. And then that's the key, is once you have that and you've made some attempts to follow up with that letter either via phone call or email or what have you, if there's not success, you can upload that letter as your private school affirmation, and the form from the post office that it was a certified letter. You can upload that information, and that will be accepted as we understand that that school is choosing not to participate. So there are some workarounds. You don't have to keep knocking on doors and calling every other day. We want you to be able to keep moving forward on this. So. All right. So the only other thing I want to mention really quickly before we get into the day is just some minor changes occurred in the application, and it wasn't even, they're not huge by any means. But what they are is I think they just allow for more flexibility, if you will. The first thing I want to mention is, this was a change. We all know that we are on the ELO system, so instead of asking for an EFN number, we are asking for an identity, or what's it? It's the, where's my notes? It's called the entity number as opposed to an EFN. And so you would still enter that 6-digit number.
And you find the entity number in the licensing?
In the licensing, yep. So that's a slight change. Again, nothing major there. We do have in the application a copy budget, so you can copy from one year to the next. I caution you to use that copy budget function. It's only for instructional budget for this year, but if you changed from going to a targeted school to being a school-wide school, don't use it. You will end up going backwards and taking way more time than if you would have just entered each budget item individually. Yes.
We had a school that applied to move from targeted to school-wide. How will we be notified if that application must?
Let me talk to you about that because they should have already been done. And I would have been the person approving that. Okay. And so...
It would have gone directly to the school?
No, it would have went to you.
Oh.
So let's check into that, okay? And we'll definitely check into that. The other thing about copy budget is if, let's say, you were able to serve 3 elementary schools last year, and now this year you're serving 4, or vice versa. If you served 4 last year and you can only serve 3, do not use the copy budget function. Because what it does, it's going to copy your budget items from last year, and you can still edit, but you'll be doing a lot of editing more than it would take longer than if you were to just enter the budget. We took away the copy reservation budget piece because we made some significant changes to reservations. And it's not on how the reservation page works. It's what was equitable for private school participation. Administration used to be under a line that was equitable for private school participation, and we've moved that to being not part of that. And the application will, what it does is the LEA, or excuse me, the guidance, which I brought my big giant guidance book here of all our non-regulatory guidance. That's not even the law, that's just the non-regs that came out after the law, states that an LEA may reserve an amount to administer the program to public and private schools. So previously, if you put $10,000 in for administration, we made you split out a certain proportion for private schools and a certain proportion for public schools. And now we are not going to make you split that out, because your administration and your coordination for Title I services is for both. And so we're actually allowing more flexibility in that sense. The other piece that got changed was we used to have a family literacy services reservation. That is now part of parent involvement, because family literacy is one type of parent involvement. And what was happening is when districts put money in for family literacy services, they had to reserve a certain proportion for private schools for family literacy services. And if the private school wasn't participating, that money was ultimately not used. And so this way it's put into parent involvement, because parent involvement is required whether you're in public or private, and family literacy is one type of parent involvement programming. So not many changes in that case. Title II had no changes. Title III did not have any changes. If you received Title IC, which is a migrant education program, there's an additional form that they're having you mail in. And I can talk, if you are with Title IC, I think there's only like 20 districts in the entire state. I can show you where to get that form if you have that. And then Title ID, there was, I think there's only one district up here in CESA 8 that receives Title ID, and there was a change in one of the questions for Title ID. But other than that, I think we're ready to go, and this opportunity is for you to work obviously as teams, to plan, to fill out the application. Darla, Chris, and I are here for technical assistance, and we can just go from there. This is our first time we've done this in CESA 8, so I'm really excited to hear about your feedback. So if something isn't going well this afternoon, or it's something great, let Darla and Chris know, and we'll go with that. So anything you guys want to say before we jump into it?
I have another question.
Okay.
Under our CESA contracts, we have an educator effectiveness budget that's in there. Can I build that to Title II?
Let's send that one to Abdallah too.
Because we have
I
a
don't
whole
know.
bunch that we have contracts with CESA 8, and that would be our literacy stuff, and those are all the CESA 8 provided.
Sure.
So what I need to know is if I can budget that in our title.
And we can
Okay.
drop Abdallah an email.
All right, that would be great.
Great. Anything else?
Cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Somebody else first.
Okay. I do have my running shoes in the car, so I might be going to get those by 10.
For applications, they have been approved.
Okay.
So what happened is, I must have put upload them, so there's not,
But I had to
there
call.
was this on the application.
Oh, okay.
So it's saying, yes, they're approved, but then there's nothing to do with that. When you go, you upload that. Okay. And then could you see if Margaret made her
That's what we have to change what we do.
I'll grab my lecture.
Because at one point, I knew this was.
I want to
And
put that
in the title, it says you're going to only do one class.